Hello, here I'm taking a look at two free WordPress security plugins that I really like. They are WordFence and MalCare, and they are very different plugins, so you probably want to pick one or the other. For some time I've been meaning to do a video on security, largely aimed at people who are self-managing on a budget, but I've put it off because I'm not a security expert. I have been using WordPress for some time, so I've gained some knowledge, and I have cleaned up a number of hack sites. These are sites that we've built that clients look after, and they tend not to update their plugins, but we've had no issue for the last 6 years while we've been managing client sites, roughly 80 plus of those. Primarily, we are using another premium solution these days, which is VirusDie. I'm very happy with it, but we do still use MalCare on some sites, and WordFence, which was something we used exclusively for over 5 years, is still on some of the sites that we partially support. It isn't really a case that one is better than the other here. It just depends on the circumstances and budgets. And generally, I'm not comfortable recommending any plugins because they can change over time. And of course, people have different needs. It's not generally a case of looking for the best, but looking for the best for your circumstances. I'm also not keen to do comparisons either. I am here because I'm picking two plugins that I think will suit different people, and I like both. I did consider, because I thought it would make a powerful video, reinstalling some of our saved hacked sites to show how these solutions that I pick are particularly good at finding malware, and how many of the other big players out there are going to miss them altogether. But I think showing this would be very biased towards the type of security plugin that I like. And here is what I think is one of the most difficult things. It got me stuck for many years because there are some plugins out there that are very lightweight and do a simple thing. So there's a couple out there that will limit login attempts to your WordPress site. There are some that will block bad bots. And I do subscribe to the point of view that you don't necessarily need a heavy all-in-one security solution. You can, if you know how to harden WordPress, you've got good hosting, you update your plugins and you use a couple of these lightweight plugins, you're probably covered. For me, I need a little bit more because I need to be able to report back and show things have been done to clients. And I know for most people, it's probably easier to start with an all-in-one solution. But there, I think, is the problem. Most of them look like they do an awful lot of stuff, but I think some are more focused on what I don't want, which is really doing the hardening of your WordPress site. It picks up whether things are configured wrong on your server, gives you a kind of tick box list of things that you could just sort of change to improve your security. But these are all things you could do manually. So I'm not really keen on those. I'm looking for something, let's move on to my criteria, that is more about the ongoing stuff. So really a scanner and a firewall are my key things. Now a scanner, probably number one, because I want something that is going to search the contents of all my files and folders and let me know, do this regularly if I've got an issue. Because a key part of our strategy for security is to make sure that we have regular backups, which are saved to an external server. So if we do get hacked, I know that there's a safe copy that I can install and we can look at the hack site out of our own leisure. And if you're on a budget, you can do this. We're using Updraft Plus, the free version. And if you've got nowhere to store, you could use that with Dropbox or Google Drive and use the free amount that you've got there. I think a scanner is really important, and I've tested the ones that we've used, VirusDie, MalCare, and WordFence, and I've tested it a few times with things that I've got. I've even got colleagues to send me some of their hack sites when they found, say, a hosting solution hasn't picked up on it. I wanted to see if my scanners have, and I've been satisfied that they are pretty good compared to what is out there of finding stuff. So that's the key thing, and this was kind of driven home to me when I had to clear up a couple of ex-client sites who didn't really know that they'd been hacked, one certainly for over a year. And that's because it was a very clever hack. It's their fault, they didn't update a plugin, so I'm sure they let in, well, I know there was a vulnerability there. But this hack disguised itself. It would really only divert you to a new page if you were a new IP address, and it was very hard to replicate it. And I did use an external scanner first to see if it would pick up on it by security. Usually pretty good here, but it didn't pick up on this type of hack. It thought all was okay. And this is saying nothing about security. They have a plugin as well. They are experts if it's just about this scanner. But interestingly, this scanner is used on a couple of all-in-one solutions as their scanner. Well, it wouldn't be much good. Now, you could argue that some of these plugins that they did have on these hack sites weren't telling them anything. And you could argue that they were doing their job. They were securing WordPress as best as they could, but they hadn't updated their plugins, so they let this in. And their primary job isn't to go and search and scan. So, you know, it depends what you're picking for, but that is my key thing. Also, I'm looking for a good firewall, something that's going to block hackers, protect our performance as well, because one of the most common attacks is distributed denial of service, where often they're trying to bring down your site. I want something that's going to block those people. And I don't really want that security checklist I was talking about. My site really has this covered. I have a starter site. So things that it would look for, like checking permissions on folders, weak passwords. And a key one here is access to XML RPC.php file. This is used in the pingback system on blogs in WordPress, probably a little bit old now. You can also use it as well to email a blog post, but we're not doing anything like that. And I know this is often very much attacked, so we just disable it. You can go and just Google search and a simple script that you can just put in. And there are lots of other things. So database prefix, that's already set on my starter site. It doesn't have the WP prefix, and we carry on from there. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other things, but largely I don't want another plugin that's focusing on that, using up server resources that needs updating just for that purpose. I want the scanner and the firewall. So I've already said that WordFence, one of its things is that it's got a good scanner. Let me just bring up their entry on the repository here. So if they're not the longest standing security plugin for WordPress, they're certainly the most popular by far. They have 4 million plus active installations. So there is that. The scanner does an excellent job. What I particularly like about it is that if it does find something on a scan, you can actually increase the scan itself so it can go more deeper. It will turn out some false positives, but you can actually kind of see all the issues here. Now, I haven't got a hack site to show you, but you can delete the files from here. You don't need to go in the FTP. You can repair the files from here. And a nice little thing that it has is it does a comparison. So if your files are the same as things that are held on the WordPress repository, it will show you the difference between your file now and how it should be looking. So really good. You can change the settings for the scanning. And if you know what you're doing, this is really useful for cleaning up any hacks. But it's really doing a pretty good job at doing the scanning anyway. And one of its other key benefits is the firewall. It has a reputation probably for having, in WordPress circles, the most signatures against malware. They are very active in what they do. They produce a lot of content. They look at vulnerabilities in plugins, let the author know, give them a chance before they publish to change things. And they also, what they do is when they find something, they will automatically also put the protection into their firewall for that. They are a company that are 100% focused on WordPress security. I can't help but think with some of the other security plugins that are out there, they've just been added to go with their collection for their existing clients. This is what WordFence do all the time, 100% focused on that, and always have been. So those are the key benefits. There are also some other features that I really like. You've got a limit login attempts, which you can adjust as you like. So you don't need another plugin for that. One thing I particularly miss is that you could set it up so you've got a notification on any login, and it would tell you who's gone in and from where. Now, I've only found one other plugin to replace this since moving off WordFence, and it can only give you the IP address, so you would look it up. So I've given up with that. There's two-factor authentication that's available, and you can disable the XML RPC from WordFence itself, but you can also add in, I didn't know this until recently, two-factor authentication for that. And I think I've pretty much mentioned that they've got a good reputation here. So there's a lot to recommend WordFence. I'm going to do a video on that because there's a lot about the settings there. Okay, let's talk about some of the cons. Now, it's often mentioned that it is resource heavy. A lot of people say don't use it because it's a really heavy plugin, use something else. Now, it is true for someone like me who measures the back end with other tools. I can see as soon as I turn on WordFence that I'm going to get lots more back end database queries, and there's going to be an increase on my RAM. It's also been criticized in the past that it's live traffic here, it's collecting data and filling up the database. But I think that's taken care of because it's set to clear itself out and you can adjust that itself. The only thing that really concerns me, actually what it adds is not major. And in most cases, we're serving up at the front end cached sites, so there's no impact on performance at all. Where I do agree with the performance, and I think this is why some hosts will not allow WordFence, is that on the free version of WordFence, it does a scan every day, but it does 2 quick scans, and on the 3rd day, it does a thorough scan. Now, you can set it so it only uses up so many resources, or set it that it does the scan over a much longer period of time. But if you're running a number of sites on your own server, WordFence on the free version decides when those scans are happening. So it can be happening on all of your sites at the same time. And I can see it on our servers because we can see the spike in the CPU. And I guess most people will not on the free version kind of set it up so it does it over a slow period. So I think that's why some hosting companies don't allow it, because it's very easy than having all of this activity going on through multiple sites on one server where no one's going to be kind of adjusting it fairly. So if you buy the Pro version, though, you can set the timing on that. So it's not really an issue. And we considered doing that. It just happened that VirusDie came out with a very good offer for us. And it was worth jumping on that because it would allow you to set the times, and it had load balancing as well for your servers. So we could have gone either way, and if I was choosing today, because the prices are much more similar now, I might have gone with WordFence for that. So I think often when people say don't go with WordFence because of performance and then go with another well-known solution that doesn't have a scanner, they're kind of missing the point here. Often the other solution is quite heavy. If it had a scanner, it might be worse than WordFence. So, you know, I don't think it's such a valid issue, but there is some truth to it. The firewall as well, again, it's still good, but I should mention that the automatic protection you get for known hacks doesn't kick in for 30 days on the free accounts there. So probably not a big deal, at least it's coming, but most of you will be updating the plugins anyway, so you know it's going to be fixed anyway. I think probably the biggest con for WordFence is that it is complex to set up. There are a whole bunch of settings. They're all very sensible and useful settings. Sensitivity of the scan, which I've mentioned, how to block IP, how long to block them, live traffic settings there, what email notifications. If you get some of their email notifications, you might skim down and it'll give you great information about files that have changed, but they're not significant. Someone could worry over it. So it's the great tool for somebody who really wants to get into it. It's my recommendation if you're a little bit technical minded. If you're not, this is why I move on to MalCare. Let me just talk about that one, and I will bring up their entry here on the repository. So this is newer. Most people perhaps don't even know there's a free version of this. It's probably known for the Pro version, which I also have. It's got a fair number of active installations, but it's not as big as many out there. And it does have some negative reviews. But I think these are unfair, which I shall explain in a moment. But it is the easiest thing to set up. If you install this, and this is what you're going to get, you just put in your email address, agree to their terms, and it's going to do a scan for you. And you can get some information about the scans. It's doing it daily. It tells you how many files have been done. It gives you some very, very basic information. There's not much here about login attempts and traffic requests, what you'll kind of get here. You need to go to the Pro version, which I have, which will give a lot more information and give you all the logs that you need about what's actually going on here. But on the free, that's all you get. But it seems like it's got a good scanner. Now, the key point of this is, apart from the setup, is that it does all of its work on its server, so you don't get any of these performance issues at all. And that really is its big selling point on this. For free, you'll get them to do the scanner, use up their resources, and the firewall does a pretty good job. You can just set it and forget it, and that's it. And also, because it's lightweight, you could choose to add in some other add-ons, but it is protecting it. But if you want extra add-ons, it's not going to have a big problem. And it's also got a very good reputation. It's by the people who made Blog Vault. Again, this is stuff that works on the server. It's backup for the server. They also do Migrate Guru, which I need to do a video on because that's wonderful. It allows you to move one site to another site using their servers. Again, it does make sense for them to go into the business of doing malware, because together with their backups and other things that they're doing, they're moving towards being an all-in-one solution for people who need to manage sites. So it's not kind of an add-on thought to make some more money with another plugin. Though it does seem to be some theory behind what they're doing. So let's talk about the cons. Well, the big con is, well, let me talk about my early experience. I was a pro user in the first place, and I wasn't a big fan because it did things like put in the advertising in the footer of my sites. Really annoyed me with their UI, and I moved from WordFence with a couple of sites, and then their big thing is that they won't allow any false positives, and I'm pretty certain they did because it was showing that as hacked. Now on the pro version I was using, there's a one-click cleanup, and I did that, and there's been no issue. Now I've been using it for a couple of years, and I'm quite happy with them. But early experience put me off. So if anybody's seen anything that I've said on that, it's kind of changed now with the trust that is there, that is developed a lot over time. There is a little bit of uncertainty, something that the author mentioned, I think on a Facebook group that I was in, over the daily scans. He seemed to think that they hadn't committed to daily scans, but that was written. And I think they want to keep it to daily scans forever. But on their free account, it's costing them. So if they're not making money for their business as a result of that, then they might have to reduce that. But at the moment, it's been that for a long time, and it looks set to be that. But it's just something to be aware of, whether that changes if you're watching this video later. I think the key thing, and why they get their kind of their negative reviews, is the kind of transparency. So what happens is if you do get hacked, and I trust them that they're good at not getting false positives, you on the free version just get an email saying that it's detected a problem. And to clean up with their one-click solution, you need to upgrade at $99 for a year to their solution. That's it. So you don't know. You have to take them and trust that there really is a problem and that it isn't a false positive. Now, I think it's fair enough to do that. If you're somebody who's been able to use this for years, use up their resources all that time, and then you've got a problem, I think it's worth paying the $99 to have their one-click solution and have their support to clean up your site. I think that's a pretty good deal. But if you're still not happy about this, or you're uncertain about it, you could just install something like WordFence and then just check whether there really is an issue there. So that's what you can do. I'm really scraping the barrel for faults, really. I'm going to put in that it doesn't entirely clear itself up after deactivation. Now, it's not leaving a load of bloat in there. It's just a couple of things which are there to really stop you going from the pro version to the free version. If you remove these entries, which I have done, you can do that. I don't think they fixed that. So as I say, I'm scraping the barrel with this. I think it's a really good solution for a lot of people who don't want the technicalities, and it's going to do your job. And I think it's worth paying them the money if you do end up with an issue for the service that they've given. Okay, let me just go through some final thoughts just on security. So there are no magic bullets with this kind of thing. WordPress is actually secure. It's really just about the number of plugins that you put in and making sure that you update. These days, it's fine. You can set all your plugins to update automatically. As long as you trust that those plugins won't break your site for doing it, you're kind of probably covered there. I'm sure really it's the case if someone's determined and patient enough, they will be able to hack you. But in most cases, in all hacks that we've had, it really is probably down to script kiddies, as they call them, opportunists who know about a publicly known weakness in a plugin and they go for it. That's the case in all of the ones that I've cleaned up, and that is the most common thing. It's probably important to make sure that you pick good plugins and themes that you trust. That's not an easy thing to do. You can check some things out by going to wpscan.com here, which is a database vulnerability. It lists all of the vulnerabilities that have been in plugins, so you can see whether some have a longer history. But you have to be a little bit fair with it, because some are probably more prone to get hacked, things that are an entry point, say contact forms, and some are not that significant, so you would have to judge that. Obviously, it's important to update software and not leave in stuff that you don't need. So a lot of people deactivate things, leave it there. So all you've got is that code that introduces a vulnerability and it's no use to you. And the other thing is picking good hosting, which is not an easy thing to do. All I can really say on that is that it might be better to, if you in forums or in Facebook groups, to ask people who manage a lot of client sites and have been using the same services for some time, what they are using and why, rather than perhaps a YouTube affiliate marketer whose really only aim is to earn some revenue by showing you the merits of their chosen hosting company, or going for ones which have a big advertising budget, the big household names who take out advertising. They may be not the best hosting for your solution. Anyway, that's about all I can say on this. So if you manage to get to the end of this, I'm sure many of you will not, I'd be immensely grateful if you took the time to share and like my video, perhaps subscribe to the channel. And I really hope to see you in another video, and I hope this was useful. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.